Where does the idea of Messiah find its roots? And what does the Messiah really mean to those who are looking for him? The Jewish foundation of Christianity, from promised Messiah to Jesus, on this day of discovery.
How can the followers of two faiths that began as one have so much in common and yet be so far apart? More specifically, how can people who believe in the same Hebrew scriptures be so far apart on whether Jesus was the promised Jewish Messiah? It was that kind of question that recently led me to meet with two men who I knew have a personal and special interest in the identity and mission of the promised Messiah. Menno Kalisher is a Jewish man who now pastors a Jerusalem church. Avner Bosky is an Israeli guide, musician, and student of the Bible who lives in the south of Israel in the biblical town of Beersheba.
Yeah, this is real beautiful. When I have believers coming to the land, I usually bring them here because this is such a valley of destiny, you know, so intimately connected with the life of Jesus.
Kidron Valley.
Yeah.
Old walls of Jerusalem on the right here.
What's that you have there?
Who did I pick? Look at that. What is that?
This is a piece of pottery from Second Temple times.
Oh, no, come on.
From the time of Jesus.
Really?
Yeah.
You're guessing.
No.
Why do you say that?
Well, because of the way it's shaped. And this is an area where a lot of junk has been thrown off the Temple Mount. And most of that junk came from the time of Jesus, from the time of Yeshua.
Let me see that.
Hebrew name.
Manny, you believe him? Or you think he's making that up?
It very well could be.
Yeah.
It very well could be.
Wow. Well, it certainly is a rich spot. You know, one of the things, you stand here looking down the valley, the Kidron Valley. You've got Old Jerusalem on the right. You've got the Mount of Olives on the left. You could almost say, looking down the valley, it's almost like you have Christianity on the left and Judaism on the right, right?
Well, in a sense, of course, you know, in those days when Christianity began, everyone thought it was Jewish, 2,000 years ago. And so when
say that a different way. What do you mean?
Well, when Jesus participated in the Last Supper, it was a Passover meal.
Yeah.
And when he died, people said this is the Lamb of God, like a sacrificial lamb. When he walked right through this valley here, it was Passover. So there was an extremely Jewish context here where the Messiah came forth, born of his own people, for the whole world.
Okay. And
absolutely. Basic Christianity is pure Judaism. That's what it is.
Say that again, another way.
Basic Christianity is biblical Judaism. The first generation of Jews who believe in Jesus, they didn't think, oh, we are Christians. No, for them, it's, wow, we used to have the shadow, we used to have the promises, now it has been fulfilled. That's what they had in their mind. They didn't think that they start a new religion. They were happy that things have been fulfilled in front of their eyes.
Messiah has come.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay, I'm with you.
That's it.
And actually, it was tongue-in-cheek when I said on the left is Christianity and on the right, because there is this rich, it was all
no,
Jewish.
it's because you're a Gentile, you think
You're
like
right.
this.
And why, you know, because I talk about
and
Christ.
And still I love you.
And I talk about Christ, and I talk about Christianity, and it doesn't feel Jewish.
Well,
right?
because most of your time you sit in a place and you eat things only from the New Testament without looking what was the shadow. Remember that when God told Moses, build the temple, build everything, what did he tell him? In Exodus 25, he said, do it as the shadow I showed you. So when you look at the temple, you look at many things in the law, basically, it's a shadow. It's a shadow.
It's a shadow. It's a foreshadowing of what would come, the fulfillment
Absolutely, but
of what was
something
Jewish.
great is going to come.
Yeah.
Not a new religion.
So are these men right? Could it be that the first followers of Christ had no intent of beginning a new religion? Not starting a new faith seems to be in line with the Gospel of Matthew. Matthew saw the events of Jesus' birth as a fulfillment of what the prophets had foreseen. For instance, after Jesus' birth, wise men from the east came to Jerusalem saying, "Where is he who has been born King of the Jews? For we have seen his star in the east and have come to worship him." Matthew goes on to say that when Herod, the sitting king of the Jews, heard this, he inquired of Jewish religious experts about where this hope of the Jewish people was to be born. To answer his questions, the religious teachers of Jerusalem quoted the prophet Micah. He had written specifically about the location as Bethlehem. He wrote, "But you, Bethlehem, in the land of Judah, are not the least among the rulers of Judah, for out of you shall come a ruler who will shepherd my people Israel." So from the Jewish prophets, the people of Israel knew of a coming ruler, a promised Messiah. But how is this Messiah linked to the Christ of Christianity? But even the word Christ in Christianity, I don't know, what does that mean?
Anointed one, yeah.
Anointed
Yeah,
one.
so.
Christ, Christianity.
The word Christ is a Greek word Christos, which again refers to having oil poured on one's head as a kind of a being set apart. And in the Jewish context, in the Bible, it was Mashiach, which means the one who has had oil poured on him, set apart to be a prophet or a priest or a king.
So in that sense, the word Christ is the equivalent of Messiah.
It's a translation into Greek.
So when we talk about messianics, it's another way of saying
Christians.
followers of Christ.
That's right.
Yes.
And if you say Christian, it's another way of saying in or about or following Messiah, right?
Absolutely.
The original disciples, their first language would have been Hebrew or Aramaic. And so their first reference to Yeshua, or Jesus, his Hebrew name, they would have said he's the Messiah, he's the Mashiach. It was only later when they moved into Lebanon, Syria, Turkey, and Greece that they began to use the Greek word Christos, which was more understandable in a foreign language.
So in many ways, an important link to Jewish roots has been lost in translation. The same Greek language that became such an important means of communicating the story of Jesus outside of Israel throughout the Roman Empire simply translated the word Messiah as Christ. The meaning remained the same. So when the news of Jesus' death and resurrection spread north of Jerusalem to the Greek-speaking city of Antioch in Syria, those followers of Jesus were called by the name Christians, or the Christ ones.
So it was that for a whole year they assembled with the church and taught a great many people. And the disciples were first called Christians in Antioch. Acts chapter 11.
While continuing to explore the important link between Jesus and the Jewish Messiah, we made our way along the wall of the old city of Jerusalem. Parts of the wall that supported Israel's temple complex can still be seen. We crossed the road and then turned to the east toward the Mount of Olives. As we walked down into the Kidron Valley and then up the other side, we continued to think together about how important the idea of Messiah is to Jewish history and to Jesus and his disciples who walked this same valley and this same Mount of Olives. These steps are fairly recent, are they?
Yeah, I'd say about 5 years old. This is a new path for people who want to come down from the city of David and the Temple Mount into the Kidron Valley.
So we're moving from the old walls above down to the Kidron Valley and then the Mount of Olives. Nobody's ever heard of the Mount of Olives, right?
Probably the most famous mountain in Jerusalem.
Hey, I got a question. We've been talking about the fact that Messiah and Christ, it's like they're equivalent. That's what we're saying, right? Christ means Messiah. Somebody says, but how important is that? I mean, making a big deal about it. And if it's important, do you have to be Jewish to appreciate it? What would you say?
Well,
Do you have to be Jewish to appreciate Messiah?
It's a tricky question.
Why?
I'll explain why. As a Jew who have been born knowing and being taught of the Old Testament, you see many more colors. You can appreciate more of the colors of the Messiah, of identity, of what he's going to do and everything.
Okay.
So yes, you can appreciate it. And why did I say it's tricky? That a Gentile may think that he has kind of a diet salvation,
What diet?
That means his salvation is only partial. You need to be a Jew in order to be saved, and that's the danger issue. Christ is all in all. If you didn't
But you
know...
could also say Messiah is all in all,
Yes,
right?
it's the same.
Yeah.
Messiah is all in all. He is the end of the law, is the target, is the end result. If you have him, there are some things you can miss in the sides. That means you don't need to know all of what he has done. If you know
And yet there's
him.
color, there's richness there. Okay, so,
Yes.
so the question is, what were the Jewish people looking for? What the fathers of Israel, the fathers and mothers of Israel, what when they thought of Messiah and the hope of Messiah, what was in their mind?
Well, you know, it's kind of like they say a text without a context is a pretext. And so when we're getting back into this issue of the Jewish roots of Messiah, we're getting back into the context of the situation out of which Jesus came, out
The
of which,
environment, the
out of which he
background.
came, and the hope as well, which is what we're talking about right now. The concept of Messiah goes back in the original Hebrew, the word Mashiach or Messiah, to the king.
To the king?
Saul was called the king, the Messiah, the Mashuach, because he was anointed with oil. It's kind of like a symbol of the Holy Spirit coming upon him to fulfill his calling.
Okay, so you're saying Messiah means anointed,
Anointed one, yeah.
and the kings were anointed.
Kings, prophets, priests.
They were all anointed.
All anointed.
So in a sense, they were all Messiah.
They
right?
were, well, the Jewish people are called the anointed people in Psalm 105, anointed for a purpose.
Okay, this is getting confusing.
You're anointed, listen, you're anointed in that sense to do something for someone else. You're anointed to a job. You have a job description, which God says, I approve. It's the kosher stamp from God.
I'm anointed.
Exactly, to do something.
So in Hebrew,
The good
I'm-
housekeeping seal of approval from God.
Exactly.
Okay, now wait. Now we've taken an idea, and it's gotten huge. It's become all-encompassing. The nation is anointed. The nation is Messiah, the Messiah of God. The priest, the prophet, the king, the Messiah of God. So where does this